Ha!
What's going on, Corey? How are you, man?
Hey, Jimmy. Glad to be here. Doing well. Staying busy. That's the name of the game,
Name
right?
of the game, man. Welcome to Let's Talk About It YouTube, man. I'm happy that you're here. I know our schedule's a little off sometimes, but you made it. I'm happy. So we're going to jump right into it, man.
Absolutely.
So, Corey, what's going on in the real estate market, man?
Real estate market, I can tell for my team and from my experience, has been good. It's been good. Things are moving. Obviously, we're in that summertime time frame where we have a lot of activity and it doesn't start to slow down until about August.
Right.
So we're riding that wave right now. It's going really good, really active.
So I know you have a YouTube series and you've got this whole business mindset when it comes to real estate and how someone can find you. Can you please deliver that to us?
Absolutely.
Man.
So my team is the New Jersey Living Group.
Okay.
So we're on YouTube as New Jersey Living.
Okay.
So what I do there is I started my model with covering a lot of the towns where I have done business.
Okay.
So my territory is relatively wide. So home base for me is really Hudson. That's where I started a lot of my business, Jersey City.
Okay.
But I live in Union County.
Right.
So I'm familiar with a lot of the suburbs to New York City and to Hudson County. So I covered a lot of towns, just covering some of the basics about demand and recent sales.
Okay.
So really informational and educational. Right. And we've kind of ventured off of that at times to get into some of the food scenes. I've had opportunity to connect with some of the local, I wouldn't say celebrities, but well-known chefs, what have you, right? To do some podcasts like we're doing right now.
Right.
So really it's about a value add. How can I bring some information to the general consuming public? A lot of them do reach out for me because that is a cornerstone of my business.
Okay. Speaking of business, entrepreneur, restaurants, cafe, I did go onto your YouTube and I saw that you were highlighting some of the urban cities, like some of the finer restaurants and cafe. Guys are there now, they're doing business. Yeah. Now, I know they're loving this ride, but have you seen, particularly in these urban communities, home prices appreciate a little bit more because of these guys being in that business? Actually having that business there, excuse me.
Yeah, so when you're in these urban centers, part of the demand and the appeal is things being within reach, walkable. Right. So if you have an opportunity to live in a community where you see yourself being able to walk down to this cafe, that's just phenomenal. Right. All right. That's a lot of the appeal of urban living in general. Okay. Right. So you're in New York City. You grew up in the city,
Brooklyn.
Right? Yeah. I grew up in a very suburban. I'm from Virginia originally, so it was drive everywhere, and it wasn't like walking. But a lot of my clients, they want to be in an area when they come from the city. They would love to be in an urban area that can get out and they can walk. So when you have that cafe or you have other venues that support social events or regular activity, it is a real significant appeal. And that does translate to demand, right? And that's market price.
Right. And one particular town I know does a very good job with it, Montclair, New Jersey.
Yes.
I mean, is it considered urban? Like, that's a good question, right?
Yeah,
it's one of those towns.
It's like a blend, right? Because Montclair does have that city vibe, but it's a suburb.
Okay.
But just phenomenal dining experiences, social entertainment scene is there, green spaces are there. And by the way, I do have a listing coming up in Montclair, walking distance from the prime dining area is going to be about 2.7 million.
Okay.
This is a really significant area of focus for a lot of those who are in New York looking into New Jersey, or those come internationally or out of this region. I have a lot of my international clientele that reaches out to me and they ask about Montclair.
Okay, so speaking of Montclair, is it fair to say the influence market has changed the dynamics of New Jersey real estate now?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the clientele or the specific demographic, because that will catch on with some, right? But then you have it's a matter of engagement. Who engages in what type of mediums, right?
Right.
So I think that when you have some I won't say millennial quite, but when you have from that early 30-ish kind of range, when we're talking about influencer and those type of content that you and I put out, right?
Right.
A lot of those are going to consume that information, and that will, translate. But it's not, I wouldn't say there's a heavy weight on it at this point in time, just in my opinion.
Okay, that's fair enough. You mentioned green space, and I, again, when I was watching some of the stuff that the content you was putting out there, it's like most today want the best of both worlds, some of that green space. And then you also mentioned like some of the towns, particularly counties, Hudson County, where they're having the bike lanes now. I saw that you talked about that, like some of these towns within the county are actually making way for bike lanes to make it a little bit more, more accessible to go from one place to the other without using a car.
Yeah.
Right. And you talked about that. And you also talked about 2035. I saw that you mentioned like New Jersey will require most of us to have plug-in or electric cars.
Yes, right? Yes, it's definitely, and I want to say that we're one of the few states on the East Coast. You find a lot of that in the West Coast. Like California was really aggressive with it, right?
Yeah, they were.
But New Jersey is definitely one of those green-friendly, mindsets in terms of where the state wants to go.
Okay.
And you see more pedestrian-friendly dynamics in some of these urban centers, even Newark, right? So you look Newark, you look Hudson County, you find they want those lanes where people can walk. They can, even downtown Jersey City by Grove Street Station.
Right.
That used to be two-way, right?
It's changed.
So now there's one way and half the road is dedicated just for dining and pedestrian traffic.
I think it's Newark and Grove, right?
Yes.
Newark and Grove, right?
Yes.
That particular street. So you've seen a lot of restaurants.
Absolutely.
Right. You see all that going on. You see all this happening. It feels good. It is good, right? But we do have, some might question home affordability.
Yes.
How do you deal with that, knowing that, this person really wants to be in a home, but because of the things that are close to the house now and appreciation has gotten to where it's gotten, how do you have those conversations with your clients?
It is an important conversation to have because the reality is these locations that are closer to New York City, they draw higher demand.
Right.
And some people who may not have that salary that's commensurate with some of those other people moving in will have difficulty, right?
Correct.
Buying some of those properties or affording. I think it's tiers to it. One of them is just like having a connection with you, right? So having a conversation with the lender to give them options, because what I tell a lot of my buyers who are having some difficulty winning that bid is that they want to be more open to the potential of, do I take on a renovation project?
Right.
Do I start targeting properties that are not necessarily move-in ready? Because right now, unlike when we were in COVID, when even those properties, it was like crazy demand over them.
Right.
That has cooled off. What's hot in the market still right now, if you are turnkey ready, whether it be a new renovation or something that has been recently updated and just well maintained, right? It's hard to get into those unless you have a really strong profile. All right, or high income.
Right.
But there are opportunities out there. So I think part of it is having conversations with lender to say, and what I appreciate about you is that you have those products, right? That you can say, hey, look, we can get a fixer upper.
Right.
And as long as we have the numbers matching what your target is and what your budget for renovation is, that's one thing they have to consider. And then ultimately, what's going to best fit your life, right? So is a 45-minute commute or a half-hour commute out that gives you a little more space, though.
Right.
All right. Is that something that is going to appeal to you, and you're not going to have to compete for that same price point for something a little smaller? So it's various angles that we have to take that conversation, but it's a real issue, and it's not an easy answer to it.
Rightfully so, because every client has a different taste.
Yes.
And different risk, right?
Yes.
So when we're speaking and I'm talking to my clients, I always give them options, right? And one of the things I like to do is like, look, this is what you can afford, but then you also have to be comfortable with what you feel like spending, right? Just because you can afford it doesn't mean you're going to spend that type of money.
Right.
And we all know there are layers when it comes to owning a home with the responsibilities and unforeseen expenses. So I always make sure I give my client that type of information through mortgage reporting. What I do at times, and to make my clients' offer stand out well, we do what we do pre-underwritten.
Yes.
So when we do pre-underwritten, it gives them the cloud that, look, all we need is the appraisal and title to come back, and you're pretty much set and sold to go with the home, right? Because sometimes some will see cash offers and they're like, well, I'm going to take this cash. But because we pre-underwritten our information, our pre-approvals, you can now take it to the next step and say, look, all we need is an appraisal and title, and just like that, my bid would be accepted. So that's some of the things that we try to do to move forward when someone is trying to get in the home and they're not feeling comfortable. We're ensuring that, look, we went above and beyond, do not just automated underwriting. We had compliance underwriters check your information to make sure your offer is accepted.
Goes a long way when you present that in front of a seller.
Yeah, it does. And all we're doing is just following up with the listing agent, let them know, like, look, we've done, again, our homework, our due diligence. Please assure that this client is well equipped enough to purchase the home. That's some of the things that we got going on. We see a lot of things happening. We see the real estate, the biddings, and we see how some are, some homes are still appreciating over value. How do you consult with your clients when they when you're dealing with situations like that?
Yes, and that is, for many clients, it is a journey. Particularly for first-time buyers, when they come into this market, it's an education. Right. And again, you're approaching it from many different angles, because it's not just price. A lot of people think, I've got to maybe have the most competitive price, but there's a lot of terms, right? So that's where we are working hand in hand with lender, obviously, to figure out what's the best way to package something that gives the price and terms that the seller's going to look at and say, hey, look, I really like what they're presenting in front of me. I'm working with a buyer right now, one of my city transitions, right? So coming from the city, coming here, and I was going to say sticker shock, but it's not sticker shock in terms of the price, because we are lower than what you're going to find in New York. What the shock is the amount or the percentage above ask. These properties are still going at, right? And the question is always, okay, well, what's going to happen with appraisal, right? So you don't really know for sure. So it's just really that journey of getting them comfortable to understanding where they need to be price point wise when they're trying to be competitive. And a lot of our buyers are looking for the turnkey, all bells and whistles, bright and shiny, okay? And some just have their mindset on that, and that's fine. But we just have to understand what that looks like in terms of being competitive. So getting them to a place of being comfortable and understanding what the market demand looks like, and that the market determines value. You may have your opinion, I have my opinion, but it's the marketplace that determines the value. So getting to that place and then talking terms, all right, what's going to be attractive to this seller? Do they need additional time in the house? Are they transitioning themselves?
That's important, right? Yeah.
Very.
That's important.
When you are in a place that, particularly when it is newly renovated or recently updated, how concerned are you about inspection items? Because there's some things that we can just say, look, we're not going to concern ourselves with minor repair. Some people will put an exact dollar figure on it and say, hey, look, I'll assume responsibility for X amount up to X amount. And they'll throw, like, say, a $10,000, right? Just to throw something out there. Others will say, hey, look, only major defect, and when I'm talking major, it has to be beyond this figure. So they'll give the seller some ease. Look, I'm not looking to haggle you, right? And then some have the cash reserve, and it's ideal to be in a situation where you don't necessarily have to have it to be competitive. It helps a lot, though, all right?
It sure does.
So if you can say, I will cover an appraisal gap, right? Or have a scenario where, and this is getting to your area again, where because of if you have a substantial down payment,
you could back
and
away
location, you know what I mean?
Away from the down payment.
Yes.
You have to be delicate with this conversation, right? Because if the home does not appraise, you don't want to be on the hook and be like, well, my professional realtor said I had to do this, I had to overbid at this, because God forbid something happens, you don't want to be held responsible because someone went above and means on their on purchasing a home. So that conversation, it's like you're dancing and you're making sure you provide. Look, you have to be comfortable knowing that you're going to go over the appraisal price. If you want this house, how comfortable are you accepting this and knowing that this is going to be your monthly payment? That's such a delicate conversation to have.
My approach is to make sure I'm not presenting the pie in the sky scenario.
That's a good one.
Just understand, here is your worst case scenario. Because you never want to be in that situation where on the back end, you're saying, well, you told me this, Corey. It is a conversation basically from the framework of, look, this is your worst outcome in this case. You may have to come out of pocket $25,000 if that's what you're saying you're going to cover for the gap. But ask yourself this: is that worth the price for you for this home? And only you can determine that value. I can't determine it for you, right? The seller can't, the listing agent can't, but only you can. So determine what value. And also, even when it comes to price point, I always tell my clients, have a definitive point in your mind where you say, if this property were to sell anything above this price point, I can still walk away and be totally at peace. Right? not having any second thoughts. But don't be in a situation where you're like, well, I wouldn't mind me going 5,000 more or
Right.
10,000 more, right? So that's another thing too. Determine what your absolute is.
Right.
Not that you have to come out with that, but in many cases, in many of these competitive situations are highest and best. And there's no second go around.
No, you get one shot, right?
You get one shot.
You get
right.
one shot. So you'd be
Right.
like, look, are you comfortable with that? And if
Correct.
you are, I'm going to present the best case scenario.
Correct.
And like I said, like we were just talking about it, right? You have to be comfortable. That conversation, it's a delicate conversation,
It is.
but it's why you do what you do, because clearly you're explaining it correctly, because sometimes in most cases your offers are getting accepted because you're laying the groundwork and letting that client know, look, this is what it is, this is what's going to cost. Are you okay with that? And then you move on, right? So
Absolutely.
that's some of the good things you got going on. Your team is growing, and it's growing because of the way you present your value add.
It's
And
important.
It's so important. Now that we see the changes happening in real estate, with some of the borrowers commission, I'm not going to go into that conversation, but I don't think nothing's going to change. I honestly feel like in the end, you was always providing your value. It just depends, not just depends. You was always providing your value. Now it's like, I just want to make sure I get my currency for my value, right?
Correct.
So how are you having those conversations with your team?
It was with
Because
my team.
they've never seen this before.
Yes, this is a new dynamic.
This is a new dynamic for them.
So we really have shifted primarily the conversation of commission and representation up to the forefront more so.
Right.
Because in the past, I did not really spend too much time on the representation piece. I mean, obviously, I'm here, I'm helping you. I get paid by the seller, right? Vast majority of clients, 95%, they're going to stick with me from the time we first engage, right? So I really didn't put a lot of weight on saying, hey, look, I've got to get this right away, right? As soon as we sit down and meet. But now it really pushes it to the forefront, and I find a benefit from it. The benefit to me is that I'm pushing more of my value add right up front. This is what you're getting with me, and this is what my fee is. But just understand, my role, my job is to get the best deal for you. Right. And part of that is negotiating with the seller, because so far we're not really seeing a lot of zero commission situations, right? And we probably won't. But we will see some, but we probably won't see a lot. But just them understanding we're negotiating on your part, your behalf, to get the seller to understand this is the best bottom line that I'm going to get, right? And that's what we're presenting to them ultimately, a bottom line. This is what we're netting you with our offer, and not focusing too much on commissions. But from me and the client is really putting out front the value that I bring, what that value looks like from a commission standpoint, and how I go about getting them the best situation so that they're not paying out of pocket anything more than what they have to.
So honestly, nothing changes for you.
Not a lot.
It's just you communicating to your team, because the media has perceived it like the world's coming to end to realtors, right?
Yeah.
And it's just your responsibility now to communicate to your team, because your team's a little young, right?
Yes.
You're having those conversations with them. They're seeing all this stuff. And as a leader, you have to be responsible and say, look, nothing's changed, guys. We've always been providing value, though. The difference is if someone has that conversation with you, you're just saying, look, I know what's going on, and this is what I'm going to give you. In the end, I'm going to provide you this value. Do you want this house? Do you trust me and my team around me? Because when you work in a team, everybody has their hand in making sure each and every one grows within that, right? So in the end, you're just going to say, look, I just want to make sure we all understand each other. I'm going to present your value. I'm going to present the purchase contract, blah, 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 and here it is. And just like that, you're going to get the house because you trusted me to begin with. I just feel like because how the conversations have been on whichever social media channel you're on, it's make it look like doom and gloom, the world's coming to an end and all that good stuff. I don't think nothing changes for you, because from the time I met you, you've always provided that value. So it's going to continue as again, it's just another layer to have a conversation with your team.
Indeed.
When you hear things like this happen, this is how you need to handle it, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, man. So I mean, I know you had some questions for me. Do you have any? I know we're going right into it. We've been speaking so much.
No worries at all. Well, I just wanted to, because you touched on one point already. We were talking about the best way to position your buyer in a competitive situation.
Right.
And you talked about pre-underwriting.
Pre-underwriting.
Right? So, and that's something I think that is super critical. All right. And I just wanted to ask you, so, because how are you presenting that? Because some people get a little skittish, like, do I really want to go ahead and go through this process this early, right? Which I tell buyers, yes. But just speak to that a little bit in terms of, do you see any type of hesitation with some clients to do that early, or do they really see the benefit and jump in like head, all in?
So here it is, right? You have two sets of clients. You have clients who are really serious about what they want to do, and then you have clients who are rate shopping me. Let me do a soft pull. I don't know. Let me find out this. Let me look into that. Those type of clients, good or bad, they're not forefront with their information. So I understand that, and for that reason, I just give them a pre-qual letter, right? Because if I know you're taking my time and you're gonna look from 30 different lenders about what's gonna give you the best rate, I understand that. I respect it, but I'm gonna give you that time. Just what you're asking for. For those who are serious, the ones that most of you and I work with, yes, they're forefront with that information. They're like, here it is. And believe it or not, they send it within 24 hours. So I have no choice but to say, look, if I have the information, let's pre-underwritten this bad boy, right? Why not? Because it makes us all feel comfortable when you submit that offer that it's 9 out of 10 is gonna get accepted. The only thing that's gonna hold it back is, again, maybe you're asking a little bit more with your inspection or appraisal conversation, right? Those are the two things that may have those hiccups. Again, that's an opinion, right? But for the most part on our end, most of our clients, they want pre-underwritten because they understand what it's like out there. And sometimes, you'll get one or two because they haven't tested the water yet. And so they haven't gotten the rejection emotionally and physically. Like, oh my God, like this, I didn't get it. But now I know why you told me in the beginning, let's get it pre-underwritten because I'm losing now. So this, for most of our clients that we speak to, yes, they're actually welcoming the fact that they're being pre-underwritten. The only ones that don't mess with it as much are the ones who are so worried about the rate that they just don't want to give information. They just keep calling like 9 different people to see what the best rate is. And to be very clear, yes, obviously rate is important. We all work within the confine of what we can do when it comes to a 1530 or an adjustable rate. But the question is, will that offer get accepted?
That's important.
Will that listing agent trust that lender to provide that information?
Absolutely.
Are they communicating with title? Are they doing certain things that on a Saturday or a Sunday or Monday night that I'm going to do that others will not do? You have to put a price on value. And if you're not doing that, you're just being rate conscious. It's okay, but maybe I'm not the right person for you. And for me, I always feel like you're getting a complete package. You're getting a communication by self-inquiry. You're getting a mortgage report. You're getting the after, what happens, what does it look like, what is a baseline. It's just not a piece of paper just saying here. You're talking about an amortization table that can change your life in many different ways. So it's important to have my value provided to you so you feel comfortable. But again, to each his own, right? If you want to shop around for rate, I get it. Keep it moving, and that's what it is. But for our clients that we speak to a lot of them want to be pre-underwritten.
Yes. Critical piece. Now, the other thing, because you mentioned rates, right? And there's a lot of conversation right now, and we're in election year.
Right.
So it is a likelihood that we're going to see some more drops. But neither one of us have a crystal ball. But what can you see as we lead towards end of this year and early 2025?
From all the data points that I've been looking at and reading and following through, we are going to see a dip in rates, but not as much as it's not going to go from, right now we're at 6.875 roughly on a 30-year. It's not going to be at 5 or 4.5%.
Right.
I don't think we're going to see that. And I think we have to be careful asking the rates to come down that much lower. Because if most were bidding on 7.5 over ask, can you imagine what 5% and 4.5% look like?
It's going to be a frenzy.
It's going to be a challenge. So I think we should be anywhere between 5.875 and 6.875. I like that number just because of the fact that we're not going down drastically enough to go into a world where you're spending 20 to 25% over ask on the home, right?
Right.
Because we do have, especially in the state of New Jersey, because we live in some towns are very congested, right?
Yes.
We just don't have the homes right now.
Yes.
And you can't say builders need to build. I mean, we're not in that market.
Yeah.
Like, there's only so much you can put on 22, on 1 and 9,
Right.
or, on 3, right?
Right.
So we have to be
Right.
careful how we have those conversations. So
Right.
I in opinion, I feel like if we stay between 5.875, 6.875, that's a good dance. We'll keep it right. We'll be right in the middle where some can afford and some can not be afraid of listing their home, right? Because that's the
Yes.
other thing too, right? Because
Yes.
if I had a low percentage, why would I go pay high
Yeah.
for borrowing that cost of money? And I understand that, but I think if we get between that dance, we should be all right. And will the rates come back down a little bit? I think so, but it's not going to be drastic like most of us are saying.
Understood. Yes.
Yeah, man. So I see you doing a lot of things with TikTok, and I see you jump on that stuff, man.
Yeah.
How do you handle all that, man?
Well, you need a team for it, man.
That's important, a team, right?
Yeah, because I leverage. It's important as you build a team out is to leverage your time.
Okay.
Obviously, I have to do business, but more of my business focus is to build.
Right.
I approach this as a business, definitely,
Okay.
not just as me as an individual agent, but how am I building a platform and an organizational structure that continues to grow,
Okay.
and people within it continue to grow. And part of that is me being out there generating content. Right. So
you do a very good job.
Thank you.
You do a very
Thank
good
you.
job. I love what especially YouTube. I see you.
Yes,
I love what you're
YouTube.
doing.
YouTube is my core. YouTube
Right.
is my foundation, right? So we do a lot of repurposing of what I do in YouTube content into TikTok and into IG Reels, but we're starting to even expand beyond that as I learn more about algorithms with both TikTok and Instagram, that some things are better fed directly in and not necessarily cut up from YouTube. So we're always looking to take that next step as to how do we best get in front of people to present our value.
Right.
And I think that that's something that has built us to the point where we are right now. We're still early phase because I honestly, our team is a little over a year, about going on a year and a half in terms of when it first launched, and it was very organic.
Right.
I didn't come out with this team idea or vision in my head. It's just that my business was continually building and growing to the point where I alone could not support the capacity, which is a good problem.
But
right?
that's testament again to what you provide when clients are working with you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it is. So, that's very much a part of what we're able to do is that people who have talent, they come on, they operate well in whatever that space is that they're in. And my role is to, again, make sure that everything is growing to the place where we have something to look forward to, right? We take that next step into that, whatever that next level is going to be.
Okay. That's good, man. Well, Corey, I know we're running out of time, but I'm definitely going to have you back on again. I'm
much
pretty sure
yes.
We're going to see a lot of wonderful things happen on your end. Again,
Absolutely.
Thank you again for coming on the YouTube Let's Talk About It podcast. And looking forward to our endeavors.
Absolutely. We got to get you on a New Jersey Living podcast.
Yeah,
man. We've
definitely.
been talking about it, but we'll get you on.
Definitely, man. All right. Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
All right.